Tonight, the Baldwin County Major Crimes Unit is investigating a deadly officer-involved shooting to determine if the officer's actions were justifiable.
A Bay Minette police officer shot and killed Otis French Jr. Saturday after a traffic stop on Lower Street. Investigators say the two tussled, and French took the officer's taser and shocked him at length. The officer then opened fire. NBC 15's Andrea Ramey joins us now.
Andrea, that officer now on paid administrative leave.
He's being described as a veteran officer who has worked in Baldwin County for more than a decade. Ultimately, a Baldwin County grand jury will review this case and determine if his actions on Saturday were appropriate. Lieutenant Andre Reed, commander for the Baldwin County Major Crimes Unit, says the officer who shot and killed Otis French Jr. was wearing a body camera, which recorded the shooting and the events leading up to it. Reed says French pushed the officer down during an initial fight outside French's car after a traffic stop for a non-working rear blinker.
Mr. French actually fled for a little bit. They re-engaged, got into another fight.
Reed says the officer attempted to tase French, but it was, quote, ineffective, and French wrestled the taser away from the officer and tased him.
The taser was engaged by Mr. French for a lengthy period. Tasers that they're issued to the Bay Minette Police Department anyway work both with a cartridge and without. So he was able to continue to use that taser.
Reed says the body cam footage will not be released at this time. How many shots were fired, how many times French was shot, and where is still being investigated, Reed says. The officer's name is also not being released.
Officer-involved shootings have a lot of implications, not just for the agency, that particular officer. Obviously, the victim in this case, the shooting victim, their family is currently grieving. But I would say for our community overall. And so we do our best to try to, I won't say protect everyone, but respect everyone's privacy as this investigation takes place.
Coming up tonight at 6 o'clock, what court documents reveal about previous run-ins French had with police. Reporting live tonight in Baldwin County, Andrea Ramey, NBC 15 News.
And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this, pick a number, get online, and kiss my hand.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele. You found the Backstory Podcast, number 136, Holding Our Breath. I have my partner in crime and sidekick, Mr. Paul Ripp.
Glad to be here. Sorry for this particular occasion. I want to first say the deepest condolences to the French family, and that the Rip Report is a not-for-profit, and anything I might say during the podcast I'm solely responsible for. So let's dig in, Harry.
All right, so we have a guest. Would you introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, I'm Joshua Brown from Bay Minette, Alabama. I am the president of the Bay Minette Justice League, which was founded after the tragic loss of life with Mr. Otis French Jr. I'm also a local business owner, and my business, we do consultations and marketing, operational maturity, and IT consultations. So
we're looking at the screen right now. This is a bunch of people, concerned citizens who showed up at a Bay Minette City Council meeting this past week. And this is the third such council meeting where people have been and demanded answers. And did you speak at all of these?
I spoke at this one in particularly. I spoke at the each of the first three. The last one is the only one that I have not spoken at myself, because we want many members of the community to be able to air their concerns. At that particular council meeting, we walked in with signs with the questions that we were asking about, what's going on. Signs with questions about the officer. I in the video clip that you just showed, Lieutenant Andre Reed was addressing that they're not trying to protect anybody. They're trying to respect privacy. Well, again, where was that privacy on Mr. O.J. French when you address he had previous run-in with the law, previous run-ins that were thrown out by the court? So where was that respect then? And then in the spirit of transparency and accountability, who is this officer that was involved? The community is entitled to know who this person is that works on our taxpaying dollars.
So I've been to a couple of these council meetings, and we're going to watch a little bit of video from one just so that just to refresh Paul's memory about how Mr. Wills treated us when we went to do you remember that meeting we went to at the utility board meeting, Paul?
I do. I think you ought to flash back to that first thing you had.
Well,
read
Harry,
some of those
you are
placards.
entitled to any animus that's directed against you. You have no good purpose in any of the things you're doing other than to muckrake around, and everybody knows it.
Yep, that's audio from 2020, wasn't it, Paul? When we went to ask some questions.
We confronted the mayor, and as soon as we confronted the mayor, or Harry did, with some very hardcore facts, he immediately got aggressive and then, attacked us or attacked Harry, just trying to change the subject. And that's usually what happens. That's what's going to happen here. They're going to change the subject. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to address it.
Well, damn, Paul, maybe we don't need to watch the video if you already know what's going to happen. Let's watch.
I mean, listen, that is what has happened. That is what has happened time and time and time again. And I think Joshua can confirm on their side in Bay Minette, they were predicting something like this was going to happen. And hell, you and I, we've been predicting this for, months, a year.
While we started the podcast.
Yeah, we saw it coming. We've seen it already happen.
I'll just start with her. Because I always saw you right. We're close enough to get to the action, but far enough away where it doesn't touch you. But what it seems like is we're close enough to get some answers, but too far away from justice. And that bothers me. So I know each and every one of you don't have children, you have nieces and nephews, you have someone, you have to understand that despite what you may think and despite what any reports may say, my brother did not deserve to die. Okay, traffic stop.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. And if the police, and I read your instructions, I'm not going to make any personal attacks, I'm going to make a general statement. If the police are not trained enough to de-escalate a situation that shouldn't even happen in the first place,
yeah.
Then they should not be on the job. They should not be in uniform. Our tax dollars should not pay for the right home to be around the city and continue to harass. It is harassment. I witnessed it. Yeah. My mother was pulled over. Yeah. Again, does nothing. There were 5 police cars behind her. Her words were, "You need all of that for old ladies like me?" Oh no, man, this is just what we do. That in itself is crazy. That in itself escalates the situation. That in itself is not right. That should not be protocol. That should not be the way things are done. That's right. And until you all take an accountable heart, and until you look deep within yourself and realize that this is not a family that comes to everyone. Come on, I'll be there. All right.
Who was that, Joshua?
That was Tamara herself, Otis OJ's sister.
I was raised up on that flag. I served that flag. That young lady there, her brother didn't deserve this. And when we got that police chief here, people live inside this town. When they come here and put that Blue Lives Matter flag up and put that Blue Lives Matter catwalk across there, we a small town. Everybody played Little League. They were played in the City League. They were raised up together. It was no young man around here, but then they the police officer like. But when a leader, I've been a leader in tight spots. In the war zone. In and the leader reflection come down to his truth. Right. That police chief right there, I'm pointing him out. Let me reflect back to his office. When he put that flag up there, they think they got somebody out here against them. These young men out here not against them. We're not against them. And we tried to have a meeting a few weeks ago. We thought we would get somewhere with you, man. And the police chief down there in Beverlyville. We had a meeting. And then we come around and come back. This joker shooter, man, I'm telling you like here, a joker. Amen. He should have been able, that young man, if he weighed 150, I'd take my head and stomp it, and I love it. How did he take a taser from a trained police officer? Right. Like she said, hey, we need to know how old are you police officers? What kind of training they got? What kind of training they got? What kind of background they got after they get that training? Did they get a social degree in criminal justice? Have they been in the war zone? Have they been in the military? You need to answer that. You just put them back to work some kind of way. Why should staff at work? We need to know that. He's still under investigation. I'm not like this all the time. I'm a God-fearing man.
Yeah.
And if you're a God-fearing man, you got children. God is in your heart. But if you turn around and put that man back to work, you don't have no God in you. And that prayer you prayed a while ago, it didn't rain. It didn't leave out the building. It didn't leave out through. And you are true.
Now listen, you have legitimate concerns. You want to hear it. Let me finish. But you're not going to come up
you already finished.
and impugn me and impugn the council like that. Okay? So if you have an intention to do that, we're not going to hear anymore. If you want to express yourself in a reasonable way, we're happy to hear you.
Are you stopping the free speech?
Yes, did I say that?
Paul.
No,
You just said that.
I can't get a clear audio on it.
Well, you can hear it pretty good on my end, and I'm recording it. So,
yeah.
So anyway, a little bit more of the same, but I do want to watch a little bit more of this because it does get.
Just speak, baby.
I would like to say,
What's your name, please?
my name is Devarius. I would like to say, start off by saying hello to all that's in attendance. See the increase in for domestic violence about that.
I don't know if we're going to listen to that guy or not.
Where that meeting consisted of some attitude swag and touting of what the city was doing into the community. But my question is to that, did the city actually hear what the community was saying and make amendments in their approach? If so, what are they? Because everything that we've seen thus far says you've ignored us. You've ignored us saying that we're hurting. You've ignored us saying that we want answers. We're not going to stop coming. We're not going to quit putting pressure on you. It doesn't go away that easily. Smart, he was very intelligent.
Corruption and problematic policies while practices. Was Thompson fired from previous jobs while racial profiling? Who was interviewed during the Bay Minette Police Department's internal investigation? Where is the autopsy report? Where is the body cam footage? If the city has investigated and has cleared the civil servant who is paid with tax dollars, the citizen should know the details of the evidence that cleared him. Do you mind sharing those details? Thank you.
So, Paul, any surprises there?
None whatsoever. The one thing I would like to comment on is they keep talking about a grand jury, and the grand jury has been one of the ways that the sheriff's department has been protecting itself from any type of transparency and accountability, because you have to remember it is a secret thing. So you don't know what's being said inside the grand jury. However, we know from some previous cases what was said in the grand jury and what turned out later to be truthful was entirely different. So the way I see this going is it'll go to the grand jury. The grand jury will be shown what they want to show them. The police will put their pitch on it, and there will be nobody there representing the individual that was shot, or family, or lawyers. So we'll have to see where this goes. But I'm telling you, I absolutely firmly believe, just like I have in all the other cases previous to this, that they're going to try to stall. One thing I wanted to ask you, Joshua, has anyone in on the county commission or the city council and mayor, has anyone made a public apology to the family, even offering any type of condolences?
So if you would have asked me this question 2 weeks ago, the answer would have been no. There was no public apology or no addressing of this issue to the community or to the family in a public forum. It wasn't until the Bay Minette Justice League had a sit-down meeting with Chief Al Talbert about 2.5 weeks ago that they finally decided, oh, maybe we should do a press release and release a statement so that the public and so that the community could see us actually form some kind of addressing of the hurt or the pain that is in the community and paying respect to the family. Mm-hmm. And the reason why they didn't is because Chief Talbert told me in that meeting he didn't think he owed the community a response.
My God.
So gentlemen, we're 18 minutes into the podcast, and we're just now going to drop the bombshell on the people who don't already know this. But the reason everyone is so upset and coming to these council meetings is that while they've apologized or given a public statement, they've yet to name the officer who pulled the trigger.
Right. It's all rumor and innuendo. Now, the rumor is, I hear it was Brandon Thompson, but that's rumor because we don't have the police or anybody else standing up. It's also rumor that the officer stopped him previously that day. It's also rumor how he was shot, when he was shot. There's all types of rumors. And it's up to the sheriff's department to clear it all up. One other thing I'd like to mention is, and this was
the Major Crimes Unit.
Major Crimes Unit. Yeah, the Major Crimes Unit headed, Hosmack's on the Major Crimes Unit. But that's where the statement should be coming from. That's where we should be hearing something. And the other thing that should be pointed out, and I hope citizens of Baldwin County understand this, is that these body cameras are paid with tax dollars. And I happened to be at the county commission meeting when Sheriff Hosmack was getting $600,000 for cameras. And in his little sales speech to the county commission, he pledged that there would be transparency and accountability on both sides, for the police as well as for the general public, and the general public would be able to see what goes on. He has yet, in any case yet, offered any camera footage in any incident all the way up until this incident.
And let me jump in here and say this. Not only is Hosmack on the Major Crimes Unit, but also as it was reported in the Lanyap report, Chief Talbert is also on the major crimes unit as well.
No, man,
Think
he's
that's
the
a conflict?
chairman. He's the
Yeah.
chairman.
He's the
Think
chairman.
that's a little bit of a conflict, guys?
Well,
Yeah, most definitely.
so-
And then go ahead.
So last week there was an update interview, and I couldn't find it. I believe I saw it on WPMI, but don't hold me to it. He did a news interview, and he said, we are cooperating fully with the Baldwin County Major Crimes Unit. He left out the rest of the sentence, comma, that I'm the chairman of. How can that in any way possibly be independent?
Now, and when you look at that, with all these questions that the community and these people are asking, that we are asking of the Major Crimes Unit, of the City Council, of the Bay Minette Police Department, this alleged officer who killed Mr. French has been returned back to work. And that same officer was identified at a high school football game with his firearm on his side.
Now that was 3 weeks ago. That wasn't this past. That's not tonight. That was 3 weeks ago. Somebody sent me that. Somebody texted me that picture of him. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
So-
there's no yet the investigation. There's no news on any part of the investigation, and he's back at work.
So I
And-
wanted. I
Go
wanted
ahead,
to.
Joshua.
Yeah,
Let Joshua get that.
And when we talk about the investigation, the meeting that the Bay Minette Justice League had with Chief Talbert, Lieutenant Andre Reed was in that meeting, and he explained that that even though it was a police shooting, they're investigating this case, the Major Crimes Unit, as a homicide. So you have an ongoing homicide investigation, and you put the alleged officer who's involved in that investigation back to work based off of an internal Bay Minette Police Department investigation that cleared him, but you won't tell us what those requirements were to get him back to work.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I want to keep y'all on the straight
Preposterous.
and narrow.
Absolutely ridiculous that the citizens of Baldwin County are going to swallow that the Major Crimes is going to investigate themselves. Is just, that's ludicrous. That's ludicrous.
Okay, so I want to give the Lanyap some credit because they're the only people that seem to be following up on this. Scott Johnson wrote an article in last week's Lanyap called "To Name or Not to Name, Anything Goes When Releasing Police Officer Information." Should police be identified when they use lethal force? Department policies may differ more than opinions on the issue. One South Alabama mayor, however, is declining to even answer questions concerning his city's protocols in the wake of a local officer being involved in a deadly shooting in August. Questions surrounding law enforcement transparency have been swirling over Baldwin County's seat of Bay Minette for the past month following the officer-involved shooting death of 32-year-old Otis O.J. French Jr. during a traffic stop. And I'm not going to read all of this, but essentially they're saying it's a tale of two agencies, that the Major Crimes Unit has their own protocols, that they talked to Mobile and they said that there are no standard policies, that it's a case-by-case basis. And in the meantime, there's radio silence from the city officials. And Bay Minette Mayor Wills told Lanyap last week he couldn't comment due to a pending investigation or even discuss the employment status of the unnamed officer when asked if the officer had been reinstated in the line of duty. That, my friends, is the end of the republic as I'm concerned.
Well, the other article, if people want to get a really, really good grasp of what's going on, was one of the first ones that Scott Johnson did with the Lanyap, and that's what's the narrative. Details released by law enforcement can drive perception. And this is where, it's like Joshua said a while ago, they want to say something about somebody's privacy, but immediately they want to bring up the fact that Mr. French had some problem with the law before, and they didn't mention that that was dismissed. And the other thing should be noted is that obviously Mr. French was known to the police. And if he was known to the police and who he was, that's something to consider. And if he was stopped previously that day by the same officer, well, then I'd like to see that. Of course, I'm sure that any record of that would be expunged by the time we got to see it. But the point of the article is what drives the perception. And the sheriff's department has been very good in the last incidences, be it the Robert Yates or Peyton Little or Jonathan Victor. Now, in the Jonathan Victor case, the police department and Major Crimes and all of them been hiding behind different types of immunity. Jonathan Victor was a young man that was had an accident off of I-10, a single car accident. He was in the car. He was acting a little delusional, trying to get out of the car. Finally gets out of the car. He's approaching the police as they're yelling at him. And he's approaching the police, and within 7 yards of being from the police, that's 21 feet, he shot 4 times. Okay. Now they, they claimed immunity and, we got all this, stuff that protects us, from any wrongful death lawsuits. However, in this particular case, U.S. District Court Judge William Cassidy found that Victor had taken no shooter stance, as what was alleged, and a reasonable person would not have thought that the items in his hands, which were his coat and a fanny pack, were a weapon. And currently, right now, an appeal by the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office and Cassidy's ruling is pending. People, that is going to play a part in this case. You watch and see.
So one other thing that I wanted to point out while we're plugging Lanyap, besides constitutional immunity, which is given to sheriff's deputies, not necessarily police officers, qualified immunity, which was created by the courts, that basically says if you're doing your job, you can't be sued for doing your job, even if that means taking somebody's life. And so that's what you're talking about in the Jonathan Victor shooting. They said, no, man, nobody's buying that. And so, anyway, another tool that institutions use to keep their employees quiet, even when they know something corrupt's going on, are non-disclosure agreements. And Rob does a pretty good job of going into this and talking about how the Alabama State Bar Executive Director, Philip McCallum, was found guilty of 17 ethics violations. And it looks like on his way out, everybody got a big, fat amount of money to not disclose what he had done. I mean, does that sound right?
Yeah, that's the Alabama Bar.
That's the Alabama Bar. And then the University of Alabama Board of Trustees, several other institutions in here. But just imagine a scenario. Imagine any other scenario where you took someone else's life and the government won't tell us who did it.
These are,
the guy that killed bin Laden, we still don't know who he is. But other than for national security reasons, there's no reason not to disclose who the victim was and the officer who was forced to defend himself. That's what we're being led to believe, right?
Right. And the sad part about it is, depending on whose statistics you want to believe, only 1 to 3% of police officers turn out to be bad apples. Most of them do their job and do their job well. However, it's been a policy. It's been a policy and totally accepted in Baldwin County for fire a police officer, one from one municipality, another municipality hires him. He gets fired from there, another municipality hires him. How do you keep hiring the same police officer, and it's the same ones? It's the same ones.
Well,
that
let's
should not be happening. Sorry, Joshua, go ahead.
looking at what Harry has on the screen here is the U.S. Census information of the city of Bay Minette from, I think, 2020.
Right.
When we go into not naming who this officer is, who has apparently has been this alleged officer has been working back in the Bay Minette Police Department since 2019. Now that says 8,107 population. Now we probably know that it's probably more close to 10,000 people. From the information that I've gathered from Chief Talbert, they only have 26 officers. You refuse to name the officer who was involved in this deadly shooting, but you didn't notify the public nor the family that you returned this officer back to work. He was back to work a whole week before somebody discovered him at the football game. So with the fear and the confusion in the community, what if that officer would have stopped one of the family members? One of OJ's, if he would have stopped his sister
Hey,
or
brother,
his parent.
if that dude pulled me over, my blood pressure would go through the roof. I would be shaking like a leaf. And let me say this.
I think, to be perfectly honest with you, I think it's totally damn irresponsible. He should be on paid leave, not back in the public.
Well, and let me say this. I know, as Sherlock Holmes would know, through deduction, I know who this officer is. I will neither confirm nor deny the name that you guys have been using tonight, okay? But I know who it is.
It's just a rumor, man. It's just a rumor.
Okay, well...
we got to wait for the police. We got to wait for Major Crimes to tell us who the hell it is.
Okay, well, I'm a big nobody out there, right? Nobody need to listen to me. I called Andre Reed, who is the mouthpiece and the lieutenant over at the sheriff's department. He's the spokesperson for the Major Crimes Unit. And I said, hey, listen, man, in a vacuum of information, what I'm hearing is that this young man was shot in the back 7 times while running away. And if you guys don't get out in front of this, that will be the mantra of the next protest. I mean, you know, let's release the autopsy information. Let's identify the officer. From that point forward, I understand not releasing the body cam footage until maybe to the public. Not until it goes to the grand jury, but at that point, it should be a public record.
Right. Don't say that it's under investigation for life and we're never going to see it.
And it sounds like this was such a clean shoot, so to speak, that they put him right back to work as quickly as they could on some kind of light duty, like, you know, interacting with 10,000 people at a football game. That doesn't seem like light duty to me.
Not only that, they need to study their protocol. If they're following their own protocol, which of course they are making up their own protocol, they need to reevaluate that too.
So for the benefit of the people who are listening and not watching, Bay Minette, Alabama has a total population of 8,107 according to the 2020 census. Employment rate of 46.8%. There are 2,812 families living here. The median household income is $39,588. There are 3,200 total housing units, and 12% of us have bachelor's degrees. Here's another interesting demographic. Bay Minette is 56% white and 40% black, for lack of a better word. And I can tell you, let's put it this way. Certain policies are enforced in certain parts of town. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So let's take golf carts, for instance. There's a little girl that lived over in my neighborhood by the lake, and I was afraid she was going to run my damn dog over. That little girl would drive through there, and she could barely big enough to get up in the golf cart, right? She might have been 6. And then there are grown men who are told they're going to be arrested for driving their golf carts down in the Douglasville community during a public event, which led us, I guess that's how I met you, isn't it? Wasn't it at the... we had a little protest or a get-together about the May Day thing that happened. which was foreshadowing of what was to come. I mean, you
It
know,
was.
how many people showed up at that thing? Maybe 50?
Yeah, there were a lot of people who showed up, about 50 or 60 of them at that city council meeting.
No. I'm talking about the meeting that we had at
Oh.
the park.
Oh, well, that was over.
Right,
That should have been over 50. The one we had down in Douglasville under the pavilion.
Right. Well, I'm talking about the one way back in May, not the one in response to what happened at the May Day celebration. Where
Yeah, that's the one.
So Paul, just to catch you up, the first weekend of May, down in the Douglasville community, the Douglasville Men's Group gets a public assembly permit to use the public park down there, and they play music, barbecue. I don't know what all goes on, but sounds like a pretty good time. And they ended up blocking the road off at both ends so that people couldn't get down there. They went down to the park and demanded they leave even before their permitted time expired. And that's how I got to know a lot of these folks was through that, and then through this other tragedy. And unfortunately, nothing's going to change until we vote out all of those people that you saw sitting up there. And for full disclosure, I ran against Bob Wills in the 2020 election. I got 177 votes. 90 of them were from, guess where?
Douglasville
community. That's right.
District 4.
Do you know why District 4? And you know how I know that? Because they're the only one with their own separate box, right? Everybody else votes up at City Hall. But I ran on the platform that I was going to get rid of the chief of police. And it sounds like 99% of the black people in town in District 4 agreed with that concept. And then you see, it usually takes about 900 votes to win, just so you'll know that in case you intend to do something about any of this. But this was the year of COVID, so it was a very low turnout.
Joshua, what's the history of Douglasville? How far back does that community go?
That community goes back. I know there's going to be some historians that are listening to this podcast and correct me, but at least to the 1930s and probably a little bit before that. See, the history of Douglasville, there was a guy, and his last name was Douglas itself. I actually had the privilege of meeting his great grandson a couple of years ago at a Democratic event that I held. He owned the land that little block, and it's called the Pecan Archery in Douglasville. It's the block that is behind Chuck Stevens Ford and in front of that Douglasville school. And he had it's called the Pecan Archery because he planted a bunch of pecan trees, probably 100 years ago that this happened. And he had a bunch of pecan trees as an archery. And then people began to actually live in that area as he, I guess, got older and moved out and sold parts of the land. And it became a community. And back in I want to say maybe the 40s, there was a gentleman by the name of Stephen J. Borkin and some others who actually started the Douglasville High School that was down in that community in District 4. And that was the school for blacks during the segregation time from first grade all the way up to 12th grade. And I believe that school actually integrated here in Bay Minette with the Baldwin County High School in 1971.
So, wow. So Paul, there's a Douglasville High School Heritage Museum, and according to their website, the first class graduated in 1950, and the school closed in 1970 as a result of court-mandated integration. So the interesting thing about it is they had this big facility down there, and they didn't know what to do with it, so that's where I went to middle school.
Yeah, I went to intermediate there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
My point is that this is a well-established part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And even being a well-established part of the community, they are not being treated that way by the mayor or the council at all.
And, you know, even to today, that facility is called the Douglasville School of Arts and Recreation. Now there's a program on the Volunteers of America that runs a summer camp and tutoring program. There's different organizations that are predominantly African American, that are predominantly Black, that use that as their hub. They operate out of that facility for their meetings, for events. This is not just somewhere that, you know, is an afterthought area. This is an active place.
So anyway, there are several different youth clubs. There's Rotary Youth Club. There's the Snook Youth Club down in Foley. And so when I was on the United Way board, we funded the Light of the City for Bay Minette to the tune of about $25,000. So that they use that facility also down here. If you can, I don't know if you guys can make this out, but this is the Douglasville community of Bay Minette, and this kind of shows you where the school is and everything, where the buildings are. And Paul, just so you'll know, this is the park where everybody gets together and has the May Day celebration. And this is where they block one road going in, and this is where they block the other one coming off the highway right here. If you can imagine.
Look, I'm not from Bay Minette. My focus has always been on Fairhope for quite some time and everything. And I mean, years ago, I heard about police harassment in Bay Minette over and over and over again. And I mean, I don't even live there. So there's definitely been a problem. And evidently, no one listened to any of the warnings that everybody was trying to convey to the council or the commission.
So I want to go ahead and address a point that is always a counter argument from the law enforcement here, is that, well, there's crime. We get calls. You know, out of 58 calls, there were 40 some odd that were coming from predominantly Black areas. Not saying Douglasville, but predominantly Black areas. Well, when you have, according to that same census, a poverty level that is over 30%, there's going to be an elevated risk of crime that happens. So what are you doing to actually address that instead of coming and just arresting? Or are you too busy, making money off of the arrests and the tickets to actually try to combat the poverty level?
All right, so I want to give.
Why don't you mention, Harry? What were those statistics on revenue through the court there?
Oh yeah, we'll get to all that. I want to give everybody a little quick overview of why you shouldn't talk to the police or engage them in any way. Okay.
If a police officer questions you when you're not in custody and haven't yet been given Miranda warnings, and you simply choose to remain silent in response to an incriminating question, may a prosecutor later use that silence against you at a trial? The United States Supreme Court addressed this issue in Salinas versus Texas. Police officers suspected that Genovivo Salinas had committed 2 murders with a shotgun. Officers went to Salinas' home, where he agreed to turn over his shotgun and also to voluntarily accompany the officers to the police station for questioning. There, they interviewed him for approximately an hour. Salinas was not in custody, so the officers didn't read him Miranda warnings. For a majority of the interview, Salinas answered the lead officer's questions. However, when the officer asked Salinas whether his shotgun would match the shells recovered at the crime scene, Salinas refused to answer. Instead, he looked down to the floor, shuffled his feet, bit his bottom lip, and clenched his hands in his lap. Salinas remained silent for a few more seconds, but when the officer asked additional questions, Salinas answered. After developing additional evidence, the officers arrested Salinas, who was charged with murder. He pleaded not guilty and had a jury trial. Over his objection, the prosecutor questioned the interrogating officer about Salinas' silence in response to the officer's question about the shotgun. During closing arguments, the prosecutor argued to jurors that Salinas' decision to remain silent about the shotgun was evidence of his guilt. The jury convicted Salinas of murder. On appeal, The Texas Court of Appeals affirmed Salinas' conviction. On further appeal, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals also affirmed. Salinas successfully petitioned the United States Supreme Court to review his case.
What do you think happened to Mr. Salinas?
Innocent.
Oh, really?
Or dismissed.
Oh, no.
What?
Oh, no.
Convicted again?
Absolutely.
Reaffirmed by the Supreme Court?
Yes, sir. That's why you don't talk to the police, because your silence can be used to infer your guilt.
Yes. Well, I can tell you that we have a case of Murray Lawrence in a wrongful conviction case, and that's under deal-with-the-devil, deal with the devil, which is a very interesting case. It involves, again, Sheriff Hoss Mack, Judge Wilters, who was a judge at the time, and people need to understand that Judge Wilters and Sheriff Mack are joined at the hip, and
and Chief Tolbert.
And Chief Tolbert, the whole system is, that's why there's no accountability.
Okay, Paul.
That's why the police that there are no cases that are going before judges where the judges are questioning the police whatsoever. That's a mistake. You know when you have a police problem? When people are scared of the police. And that's what's going on in Baldwin County. They're scared of the police. That's a police problem when you're scared of the police. They're supposed to be working for us and protecting us, not us being scared of them, knowing that they don't have to show anything. They have all these ways of getting out of stuff. I'm hoping this is the end of it here.
Well, in the meantime, and this is a little inside joke. So Paul Ripp went to the county commission meeting about 5 years ago and said, y'all are never going to sell this damn mega site if you don't put a sign on it. So then they put a sign up, and shortly thereafter, we finally have good news. So I want to listen to this, and I want you to imagine that you're going to invest $2.5 billion into a town with these kind of social problems.
Day for Baldwin County and people looking for a job that comes with a nice paycheck. A groundbreaking ceremony today for the Novelis $2.5 billion aluminum rolling plant in Bay Minette, the first major industry to set up shop at the mega site just south of I-65. As WKRG News 5's Blake Brown reports, this is expected to bring more than 1,000 new jobs to South Alabama.
3, 2, 1.
It's been talked about for months, but Friday, Novelis is finally breaking ground.
Who was assigned to keep Jeb Ball from eating dirt during that? I'm sorry.
In Baldwin County.
This aluminum recycling facility is here for the long haul. It's going to change a lot for the good in Alabama. Proud to be here.
Novelis, the world leader in producing aluminum for the automobile and aviation industry, will build an integrated mill at the mega site of Bay Minette,
There's your sign.
1,000 jobs and a long-time commitment to South Alabama with a $2.5 billion investment.
It's kind of just a real whirlwind process when they came to us and said, hey, we need a site.
Get out the violin.
Be ready. We were in the process of doing preliminary site work out here, so, it just married up, and there were just certain things along the way, like the county already building a material recycling facility.
The company already has 15,000 employees worldwide. The average salary comes in around $65,000 a year. Good-paying jobs coming soon to those ready to work. And if you're interested, company president Steve Fisher says some of the positions will be advertised soon. Then Novelis will start the training process before the facility opens.
We will be taking the workforce to other of our facilities, helping them learn the processes of what we do, and then bringing them back here.
Production is expected to begin at the new facility sometime in early 2025, but the impact here in Bay Minette starts now.
You look at North Baldwin over the last decade was flat in growth, and every other city in the county was growing high 1%.
Gee, I wonder why.
Really?
8, 9, 10, 15%. Fairhope. You look at all these other communities in Baldwin County, so now North Baldwin's time in the sun to shine is here.
Again.
In Baldwin County, I'm Blake Brown, WKRG News 5.
So let me go ahead and put it in layman's term of what Mr. Lawson just said. He said, if you look at Baldwin County over the last 10 years, it's been declining in growth. I would like to equate that to the last 10 years, we've only had one mayor, and he's only been serving for 10 years.
And I'd like to add that the mega site, first of all, it took them, imagine this, imagine that you hired someone to sell your property or develop it, and it took them 10 years. Do you think that's an accomplishment? The other thing that people should understand is that the mega site was the last available mega site in the area that anyone could select. And then the third thing is that Novellus, it wasn't economic development that sought them out. It was Novellus that was trying to find a location and had to in a hurry or a little bit more under stress. And that's how they came there. And I think Harry's point to, if you think that this company of this size is going to participate in Bay Minette, and they see social issues such as what we're talking about right now, and they're just going to remain silent, that's not going to happen either. You're going to find out that when you have a mega industry, they can be mega influenced, and they can be very influential in the community as far as what's going on. They're not going to want their employees stopped for a blinker and shot.
I wouldn't think so. Well, that gives us a perspective of that. So, Mr. Rip, anything else from the? I did want to tell y'all one more thing, just to get Paul's goat. Baldwin County taxpayers will provide over $123 million in tax abatements, infrastructure improvements, and economic incentives for Novellus to build a massive $2.5 billion manufacturing plant north of Bay Minette.
How much?
$123 million. The city of Bay Minette is also forking over incentives, including $5 million in cash to support the project. The city, with an annual overall budget of $11.6 million, will pay out the cash incentive over a period of time. The first installment is $1.7 million, was recently paid out, according to Mayor Bob Wills. Local incentives are to
think about the purchase, and the purchase price was somewhere like $43 million, wasn't it? And take 10 years, so you can safely say that the county had $50 million wrapped up in the mega site, and of the $50 million that they had wrapped up in there, there were $5 or $6 million that was spent on land that was very questionable whether it was even needed in the mega site.
So anyhow,
you're not going to hear all that from economic development, though. They're not going to tell you that part.
No, but here's how you can tell this is something that was placed by Lee Lawson. Okay, so after they tell y'all we didn't give away the farm, y'all. The $135.3 million in tax incentives is far below what the $800 million that we had to give to get the Mazda Toyota plant in North Alabama a few years ago. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
They're trying to.
It's always that. It's always something like that. Yeah.
But it's corporate welfare. God, I hope he's okay. He's got a little lump.
Also, the other thing that people need to really be paying attention to, in the last 10, 15 years, Bay Minette is a shell of what it used to look like. It used to be a vibrant little downtown area. All the shops were, occupied, and it was a great business area. Now it looks like it's being vacated. And what are we doing right in the center of Bay Minette? They're building a 903-bed jail. That's when everybody else across the country is trying not to monetize putting people in jail. Bay Minette's major focus is to build this 903-bed jail, and that's to make money. What do you think's going to happen when they build the jail? The first thing they're going to try to do is fill it up.
So, Paul, and I'm going to have to give you guys a little bit of credit. So here in Baldwin County, there's a century-old controversy that's ongoing about the removal of the county seat from Daphne to Bay Minette in 1901. And beginning with the 100th anniversary, they started doing a removal day reenactment, little play, dramatization, whatever you want to call it. Right. And you can see Mayor Wills in his seersucker with his little hat on, and you can see Chuck E. Cheese behind him that does one of the parts, and you can see Tolbert and Jeb Ball and some other people participating. Our director there, and here are 3 of our county commissioners. And whoops! What? Oh yeah, there's be the O.J. French protesters right behind the bandstand, where everybody watching the play has to endure that, which I thought was perfect.
I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and you should be proud that came off the way it did, Joshua. It was not. Was very quiet. It wasn't meant to be, noisy or anything else. I thought it showed a lot of respect, but at the same time got the point out of the concerned citizens.
City of Bay Minette t-shirt, 606. 606.
Nobody's shouting. Nobody's interrupting the program.
606. Wow, congratulations, sir.
I guess they had door prizes.
Ashley Jones Davis, Johnny Biggs, and Grant Black.
I think you got your point across that day.
Oh, yeah. That was really good, man. Well, so, Paul, do you have any other issues you'd like to talk about?
Actually, on this particular one, I could go on and on and on, but I'll give it a rest for right now. I do want people to please pay attention. You think this doesn't involve you? This involves you. It doesn't make any difference if you live in Gulf Shores or you live in Bay Minette. We have got to do something about this situation before it happens again.
So, Paul, most of the people that we've profiled on our podcast who've been killed by law enforcement in Baldwin County have had some kind of mental disease or defect. And I have heard in the vacuum of real information coming from anyone, I have heard certain things that Mr. French may have had some kind of mental disease or defect. And, this fits the pattern of what we've seen. And
the exact pattern over and over again.
And to drive this home, I have this, I saw this week last week on AL.com. A 2017 study found that Alabama ranked 50th out of 51 states in D.C. in access to mental health care. So now they're going to try doing these community behavioral health clinics.
Mm-hmm.
To fill in
Here's
gaps
the other
when
thing,
Alta-Point can't take care of somebody.
Yeah, something that little bit that came out that we did hear was, of course, that the officer involved was scared for his life, and he was scared for his life allegedly because Mr. French had gotten the stun gun away from him. So it makes me wonder, when the officer was trying to shoot Mr. French with the stun gun, was not Mr. French scared for his life? And if the officer had the training to know what the end result of a stun gun was, why shoot the man?
Mm-hmm. And see, the other thing is when we go into the training and knowing that Mr. French, OJ, had a mental condition. What type of training? The question was asked, what type of training had the Bay Minette Police Department actually undergo when dealing with mental illnesses, a person who has a mental illness? And the response back that we actually got was, well, they watched, they did this mental illness training that was a video, a 2-hour video. And now, since the shooting, they are slated to actually go under more extensive training with Alta-Point. So there was no training, no true training in the beginning. And then it also on that point of this alleged officer, this individual, this officer who's being investigated, in 2013, allegedly he was fired from the Bay Minette Police Department for, and I actually spoke to the person who this incident happened to. He kicked her door in to her duplex and fought her in her kitchen. That's how he was terminated from the Bay Minette Police Department before.
Now, this was let me think about how I heard this. I heard that he approached a group of young men. He asked them for their IDs, and he did a Terry stop pat down to make sure they didn't have weapons. He got back in his car, and these guys not being under arrest dispersed, right? So he runs them, and it turns out one of them has a warrant. Well, if he were in hot pursuit, he could pursue him through the White House, but you can't go hunting somebody on private property just because they have a failure to appear warrant or something like that, right? So that was the predicate for him going into that residence and getting in that tussle. And it seems to me that they fired him just long enough so that woman would go away, then they hired him back. Now, that's pure speculation on my part.
But that's what has happened, and there's a record of it throughout Baldwin County, is this officers flip-flopping from one department to the other when they're fired or disciplined.
All right, so this is I want you to go listen to this. There's no video to it. It's just audio. But it's the Backstory Podcast Solo number 1 I did back in May of 2020, where I interviewed the former director of the Southwest Alabama Police Academy, and it's all about how they smeared the people that work there and shut the place down, and that's the reason we don't have any training. This is how long Paul and I have been talking about this.
Right.
I went and hunted down the guy that got fired 17 years ago and asked him what the hell happened. I mean, I'm at my wit's end, man. What are we gonna do? And I really didn't mean to do it this time, but I'm gonna. Law enforcement in this country is cult-ish. I'm not gonna say it's a cult. I'm saying it's cult-ish. When I was a city planner, right? When a city planner got killed in a car wreck in Mowgli, Oklahoma, we didn't all wear black for a week. Okay. It's cult-ish. And if you're not cult adjacent, then you're on the wrong side, especially if you're a Republican like me. And all I want is everybody to do their dang jobs, right? And I want proper
accountability.
Training. Okay, well, we had it. We had a police academy here.
Right.
What happened? Go listen for yourself. It's disgusting. And guess who's in the middle of it? The sheriff.
Right.
Imagine that. Oh, Paul, just for posterity's purposes, Al Tolbert was also fired from the Bay Minette Police Department in 2001. He gets a job at the Sheriff's Department where he rises to the mighty rank of corporal, which is why I'm saying he's got powerful friends. You don't go from being a corporal at the Sheriff's Department to the Chief of Police in Bay Minette. He's never supervised anybody before.
You do if the mayor paves the way for you.
And I think that's all that needs to be said about that. Well, guys, I certainly appreciate your time. Joshua, it was a pleasure again.
Thank you.
Mr. Rip, just so y'all know, the 3D Collegiate Archery Championship is going on. The shoot-off is tomorrow at 11 o'clock at the Foley Nature Park down off County Road 12. So I will be there with my GoPro.
All right.
It's kind of like my Super Bowl. I can't imagine. It's crazy they do it here in Baldwin County. But so there are good things that go on, and there are good communities. There are good community leaders, and
it's only 1% to 3% bad apples.
And it's the purpose of, for the first time in history, do we have the technology to do something like this as citizens and demand somebody listen to us, or at least hope they do? Do y'all agree with that?
We're going to try like hell.
Yeah.
And we're going to do everything we can. And like I said, me and Paul have been at it a while, and we're here to support what you guys are doing, so long as you conduct yourselves as you have so far. And I can tell you, you have held your temper a hell of a lot better than I could have.
Right. And hang on when we get off here a minute, Joshua, too.
All right, guys. Well, I will see you next time. Thanks so much.
All right. Everybody be safe.
Good police work or intimidation? That's the question some in the African-American community of Bay Minette are asking about some of the crime-fighting efforts in their city. News 5's Debbie Williams went looking for some
2018,
answers
Paul.
on the Baldwin County beat.
The train tracks here in Bay Minette, a dividing line in the city that some say on the one side is law enforcement, on the other is harassment. A Bay Minette police cruiser patrols a neighborhood.
We ain't never seen this go on until we got the new chief going around here.
Fearful of retaliation, this woman didn't want to reveal her identity.
Everywhere we go in our community to either do anything, it's always police on every corner. And it's just getting out of hand. I mean, we can't do anything.
She says cameras are up in neighborhoods off Hickory Street and the Douglasville community and Clay Street.
We just feel like we're being violated.
Police called the one block of Hickory Street searched, monitored. Chief Al Tolbert makes no apologies.
We have received some complaints, but the praise that we've received from the law-abiding citizens and residents in these areas have outweighed the negative complaints tremendously.
And it may be working. Crime figures for last month are down 25% compared to the same time last year. Tolbert says that's a good start.
We're going to keep at it and continue what we've been doing.
On the Baldwin County beat in Bay Minette.